606 to Talk 107.3 FM, WBRP. Good morning, everybody. Brian here with you. Jake producing. We call it Mornings with Brian Haldane. And we are getting ready for a wet Tuesday in Baton Rouge. Going to get nasty today, y'all. Weather's going to be terrible today, and we've got you covered. We will be covering the approaching inclement weather, the approaching storms, approaching severe weather situation. We'll also have a regular show throughout as well. But we're on it, to be sure. We are ready to roll should things get sideways. You heard the news from CBS on the way in. So far, 17 tornadoes have touched the ground as a result of the storm that's headed our way right now. 17 tornadoes. Now, that's bad enough in itself, but on my way in this morning, that number jumped from 12 to 17. On my way in this morning, listening to First Light, the number was at 12 during the 4:30 news. Now up to 17. What can we expect here in town? Well, let's break it down for you. Not much until about noon. In fact, no real chance of rain until about noon. 10 o'clock, expect the wind to pick up a good bit. At noon, we have an 80% chance of rain with thunder and lightning. 80% chance of a thunderstorm starting at noon. That will carry with us until about 6 p.m., and then it should all be over with. Now, those 6 hours are expected to be very intense. Those 6 hours are expected to be very bad. Like we just said, 17 reported tornadoes have already touched down as a result of this system that's headed this way. So we encourage you to take precautions. If you've got anything you got to get it done early. If the kids are getting ready for school, well, you might not need them to. Grabbing the list from our news partners at WBRZ, the following schools are closed today due to inclement weather. Ascension Parish Public Schools, Assumption Parish Schools, Central Community School System, Hosanna Christian Academy, Eberville Parish Schools, Inspire Charter Academy, Jehovah Jireh Christian Academy and Learning Center, the Livingston Parish Schools, Point Capee Parish Schools, Southern University Lab Schools, St. James Parish, West Baton Rouge Parish, Zachary Community Schools. A stack of schools are going viral today instead. Dalton Elementary, Glen Oaks Middle, Lanier Elementary, Louisiana Christian University, Wilkinson County Schools. Not listed on their list, but I know this one firsthand. Catholic and St. Joseph's will both be virtual today. Early dismissals for LSU closing at noon, BRCC closing at noon, East Baton Rouge School System closing at noon, diocesan schools closing at noon. High schools and middle schools within East Baton Rouge, actually it's not noon, they'll dismiss at 11:45. Elementary schools will dismiss at 12:45. So it's not a noon dismissal, it's an early dismissal. High school and middle school, 11:45. Elementary school, 12:45. Holy Family's going to close at 11. Dunham's going to close at noon. Tangipahoa Hope Parish schools have half-day dismissal. Head Start locations throughout Baton Rouge will close early. Programs will close at 12:45 at all locations. All but Dalton Elementary. That will close all day long. LSU's Lab School closes at noon. Episcopal closes at noon. Nope, sorry. LSU's Lab School closes at noon. Episcopal is going to close at 11:15 for 1st through 5th graders. All the way through high school will be 15 minutes later at 11:30. And finally, the last one on their list, Gardere Community Christian School closing at noon. So the long and the short of it is this afternoon, the street should be just about abandoned. Everyone should be able to get to where they need to be to ride out the storm. It is going to be nasty. No fatalities reported as yet, at least not that I've heard. No fatalities reported as yet. But it has been bad so far and is expected to be bad today. What we will be tracking with the storm as the day wears on is how it maintains that supercell strength as it moves from the west to the east. In fact, taking a look at the radar right now, the majority of the storm, or the front squall line of the storm, is pretty much hitting Louisiana's border right now. The further north you go, the further east it already is. But that which is going to be heading our way, it's actually still a little bit in Texas. So, as the day wears on, we will have the latest for you. Like I said, we'll have a regular show mixed in as well. Going to be talking with Tommy Pigott from the Republican National Committee. Why? They've got voter registration drives going. Where? Oh, you're going to love this. Gas stations. Vice President Kamala Harris was in town or in the state yesterday. She was in Sunset talking about broadband internet. We've got audio from her remarks. Some of it makes sense. In our 7 o'clock hour, Adam Knapp from the Baton Rouge Area Chamber hops on board to talk about the 5-year strategic plan at 7:15. Fred Raiford from the Department of Public Works at 7:35 to talk about storm prep. In the 8 o'clock hour, Attorney General Jeff Landry joins us for his monthly visit. And then Dr. Josh Eachus rounds out the guest list at 8:40 with what to expect from the storm today. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, it's sports time on Talk 107.3 FM. LSU has a new head basketball coach, and the Lady Tigers are done. Before we take that break, though, I want to remind you, might have to take an early lunch today. Maybe swing by Mooyah Burgers, Fries, and Shakes. Get yourself ready for the storm with a full belly. Look, if you're taking half a day off and going home afterwards, why not indulge? Why not go with a double Diablo or a double classic double cheeseburger? You're going to have nap time afterwards anyway, right? You're riding this thing out by snoozing a little bit? Yeah, get yourself a full belly over at Mooyah Burgers, Fries, and Shakes. Tell you about the burgers every day. I do like to tell you about the fries as well, though. Sweet potato fries dipped in honey. If you know, you know. If you don't, get in the game. It is a game changer. 2 locations, Blue Bonnet at Highland, Segan just north of Industrialplex. Top-notch ingredients, top-notch service. It makes for the best burger in Baton Rouge. Mooyah Burgers, Fries, and Shakes. Okay. Can't believe you haven't yet. Hey, YouTube, I'll be in just a minute. Oh, excuse me. Oh. It's hot in here. Oh, we only get 3 minutes for this segment, and I'm burning it by taking off my sweater. 616 Talk 107.3 FM WBRP. So the rumor started yesterday, really swirling in earnest yesterday, and then it quickly escalated from there. Just 2 days after the men's basketball team was eliminated from the tournament, athletic director Scott Woodward has found the man to replace Will Wade and move the program forward. That man, Mac McMahon. He has been head coach at Murray State for the last 7 years, leading the Racers to 4 conference titles, 3 NCAA tournament bids. John Wright is the sports editor at the Murray Ledger, says there's a lot to like about McMahon.
He is never underprepared, and he really, really seeks the best for his players. He is definitely the epitome of a player's coach, I believe.
Murray State ranked in the top 10 in offensive efficiency and the top 20 defensively this past season. The type of balance necessary to win big, but job one will be trying to bring some players to Baton Rouge, after which should be a massive exodus. Wright says McMahon is a talented recruiter with a template for what he wants in a student athlete.
The thing that he talked about more than anything on court is unselfishness, toughness, and accountability. He has a specific idea of the player he wants, and he targets those and tries to get them to fit into the system.
Tell you what, the first place we need to look is the transfer portal. Top 2 scorers on Murray State's roster are both juniors. I don't expect them to move, but the next guy in line, shooting 36% from behind the three-point line, sophomore guard Justice Hill, I think was the last name. Went back and looked at some highlights from the last game of the season. There's a lot to like about McMahon. I'm liking this hire already. McMahon has been highly sought after, with his name connected to just about every Power 5 job opening in the offseason. Wright says that's with good reason. The fan base should embrace him pretty quickly.
He has always been a very accessible guy. He absolutely would be great anywhere he wants to go. There's no doubt about that. Any school would want to have him.
What is going to need to be talked about, and what, by the way, we'll find out contract details and all that stuff in the very near future. What is going to need to be talked about is how we got him. McMahon should be on the short list for every open job out there this offseason. I mean, that's the level of success he's got. He is the next round of Will Wade, the next round of Shaka Smart, the next round of all the mid-major coaches that proved themselves by getting their automatic bids in their automatic bid leagues and making it up to at-large leagues. LSU women's season is over with, sadly. 79-64, your final score last night. I mean, it was only a matter of time. They were just going to run into a buzzsaw, and they did so with Ohio State. Kayla Pointer had 32 points. Jalen Cherry had 12. They were the only 2 in double figures. Ryan Payne had 8. It wasn't close. By about the end of that middle of the first period, when Ohio State took over, it was just distancing from there. Quick break for the Fox Business Report. After the Fox Business Report, let us talk a little bit about hands-free cell devices. That's next. Oh, shit on me. All right, let's go. Tell you what, now that LSU is out, I could turn my attention to UConn. I have absolutely fallen in love with this. Not fallen in love, that's the wrong term. I want my daughter to be like Paige Beckers. How about that? I'm watching UConn basketball with an enthusiasm for women's basketball that didn't previously have. This girl fighting over a loose ball or a jump ball tie-up last night and then just firing up the crowd. But one of the sweetest, smoothest strokes from outside. Like a baby. Get in my belly. Oh, man. Damn. Freaking pop-up ad just basically took over this thing and shut down my internets. What's good, YouTube? Who's in this morning? Eric, Renee, Clinton. And good morning, Christy. Welcome in, boo. Hope you got a good workout in this morning. There was no reason for Catholic and SJA to go virtual. They could have gone half day. Ow, knee, crap, poop. Oh, I meant to grab my cup. .624 Talk 107.3 FM WBRP. Mornings with Brian Haldane rolling right along. We are getting you ready for today's storms. Once again, most schools in the area either closed or early dismissal today. We read off the list at the beginning of the show, but for the remainder of the show, I got to tell you, I'm not the guy that likes reading off the list of school closures because it's never going to be comprehensive enough, and in the off chance that one of them is wrong, in the off chance, and it doesn't happen often, but when it does, it's like, don't rely on the radio to know if your school is closed. You know who you should rely on to know if your school is closed? Your school. This is 2022. I mean, there was a time when everybody would have to tune in to hear the list of school closures. You'd wait around the radio to find out if you were going to school that day. Yeah, no, not with email, not with text alerts. Your school should have already let you know what's going on today. So most schools are either closed altogether today or have an early dismissal in some form or fashion. Check with your school for the latest. This weather's going to be nasty. Our news partners at Louisiana Radio Network caught up with meteorologist John Weatherby. We're going to have Dr. Josh Eachus on at 8:40. John Weatherby said, strong to severe thunderstorms. They're marching in from Texas, like literally as we speak.
And a portion of our state is now under a severe threat for locally heavy showers and thunderstorms, hail, damaging winds, and isolated tornadoes.
CBS News, when we get to the bottom of the hour, is going to play audio from out of Texas as more than 17, or we're right at 17 tornadoes have been reported as touchdown already. 17 tornadoes from this storm already. And we've got all day long for it to just pound on Louisiana. I think they got a reporter in Texas, and I want to say Jim Crisula is in New Orleans. We'll get the latest from CBS in just a minute. Back to Weatherby. He says there's only a marginal threat for northwest Louisiana. Greatest potential for severe weather exists for portions of central and southeast Louisiana.
And the greatest threat is north of I-12, I-10 west of Baton Rouge, and north on I-49 to Alexandria.
So there's a decent chance that you don't individually get hit, or I don't individually get hit. But this band of storms is so widespread, there's no way you don't take precaution, because there's no way you know which spot along the way is going to be where it gets the nastiest. By the way, there's also the potential for 4 to 6 inches of rain over a very short period of time. You give me 6 inches of rain in 6 hours, and they can get bad. They can go sideways. Weatherby says that's because of a slow-moving squall line that could spawn the tornadoes as well.
So the threat of individual cells doesn't look quite as impressive as the actual squall line that's now marching its way across Louisiana.
And get a look at this squall line if you get a chance. Pull up a radar if you can, because it is intimidating, to say the least. We'll have it for you. Oh, by the way, programming note, we're going to, once this show is over with today, we'll go ahead to our normal programming. Fox News Rundown at 9. Brian Kilmeade, 10 o'clock and 11 o'clock. But starting at noon, we're going to pick it back up with some emergency storm coverage. We've gone ahead and made that call right now. Picking it up with emergency storm coverage at noon. So as you're picking up your kids from school, or wrapping up from a half day at work, or filing for a half a vacation day if you have to, like if that's the case where you work, then we've got you for your basically afternoon drive in the middle of the day. We'd like to get you home safely today. And since most folks are going home around noon, that's what we're going to do. And you know what? If it goes sideways, we'll stick around on the air. The plan right now is just go on at noon. We'll see where it goes from there. How bad is it going to be as it makes its way across Louisiana? And I'm not the hype guy either. Like, I'm not, like, when it comes to the storms, I'm usually downplaying it. I don't know what it is about this particular system that has me so fatutzt. Noon to 6 today. It's going to get nasty, y'all. Looking for some comps on what this storm is going to be like. Can we compare this to other storms? The first one that's going to come to mind is last May? When we flooded. That's the first one that's going to come to mind. From the way I understand it, intensity-wise, yes. Duration-wise, no. That thing just kept on raining. Hours on end. But intensity-wise, absolutely. All right. We're going to shift gears here. Got to talk about something else. Have you filled up with gas lately? Of course you have. The gas prices have been around long enough. The gas prices have been high enough for long enough to where you can't avoid it at this point, unless you drive a Tesla or an EV of some sort. Well, you know when you're filling up with gas, how as you're watching things tick up at $4 a gallon, it just stings? You might be feeling a little vulnerable in terms of where your next vote is going to go. And if someone from the RNC walked up to you while you're at Circle K or Cracker Barrel or Be Quick, if someone from the RNC walked up to you and said, "Hi, citizen, we'd like to register you. We'd like you to register to vote," I'm thinking maybe that's a good time to hit people up. I'm thinking this idea is a little bit brilliant. Republicans aim to register voters at Phoenix gas stations. Oh, yeah, that's happening in Arizona. Could it be happening here soon? Tommy Pigott, Rapid Response Director from the RNC, is going to join us to talk about this next, right after we check news here on Talk 107.3 FM. I freaking love this plan. Troy says, McMania, Brian. McDonald's called. They want their word mash back. Yeah, I know. I was being silly. I said, is it going to stick? I've got Matt McMania. It was a little poll question on Twitter yesterday, and the answers were put on a shirt or shut up, stupid. That weather dude sounds a lot like Greeny from ESPN. I thought the same thing. Yeah, I'll try not to say the F word, Byron. Yo! Don't yell at me. It won't. Huh. Kurt Gray. Oh, we might get him one. McMania! Marrying prisons. Oh, whoa, 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 whoa. Nice and warm today? Did he say his last name? Did he say his last name? He just said Tommy? Okay. All right. Yeah, just say your last name is pronounced Pigott, right? Okay. Yeah, he's been on before. I knew that. I just wanted to double check. No. I don't know where he's from.
He looks a lot like the guy that was with. He's running for judge. Older gentleman.
Brad Myers?
Yeah, the guy who's sitting here.
Yeah. Oh, okay, yeah. I was going to say Tommy's way younger than Brad Myers. But then again, so is everybody else. No, no. That is a joke based off of the fact that he was ripping on Jordan and Jen's experience, like, and it's not ripping on him. He's running on his experience. So if you're going to run on your experience, you're going to run on your age.
I mean, yeah,
You're
that's a double-edged sword.
You're called, yeah. If that's what you're running on, then you're running on I'm older than everyone.
Yeah.
He's good though. All three of them in this race are really good.
Well, I mean, that can only mean good things for the state, right?
Somewhat. The one I worry about the most in this race is Jen.
How come?
I think her constituents like her too much as a council person.
So you think changing positions would be like...
I think changing positions is something that people would be hesitant to do because they like her where she's at. I haven't talked to that many people, but the ones that I have that live in her district are like, no, I'm not giving her up. It's like, fair enough.
Interesting. Was that...
No shit, Ken. I'm gonna have to run upstairs at 7. To grab a promo for the Michelangelo thing. I keep forgetting to print it and bring it down here, and I've been winging it. Yep. It'll be a 52. .638 at Talk 107.3 FM WBRP. Mornings with Brian Haldane. Rolling right along. You heard the forecast right there from Marissa Nuzzo. We will get you back to what to expect from today's storms in just a little bit. And yes, it is going to get nasty. If you've got anything to do today, get it done before noon. Get it done before noon, and if you can, get home by noon. Let's just ride this thing out safely this afternoon. By the way, we will be providing extended coverage starting at noon. We will interrupt the Brian Kilmeade show at noon in order to tell you the latest about what's going on in our own backyard. So let me paint the picture for you. You pull into, let's just say, the Be Quick. You go to start pumping gas. You get a look over at the little gauge that's telling you how much is being pumped in and how much that's going to cost you. You feel that little burn in your stomach. Ouch, this stings. This is more than double what it was a little over a year ago. If someone were to approach you right then, asking you to register to vote, I'm just guessing you're signing up eagerly. It's a brilliant strategy. The RNC is doing this in Arizona right now. Joining us to talk about it is a rapid response director from the RNC, Tommy Pigott. Welcome back, Tommy. How are you, man?
Hey, doing well. How are you doing?
I am doing great this morning. We're bracing ourselves. This wave of storms that's about to roll through is just, it's going to get wicked all afternoon.
Yeah, I'm hoping that everyone takes your advice, gets done before noon, and is rides out the storm, be stormed safely.
Absolutely. All right, so out in Arizona, I hate to laugh, but it's kind of like brilliant. The Republican National Committee on Saturday will hold 3 voter registration drives near gas stations in Phoenix in the hopes that rising fuel prices will steer financially pinched drivers to the GOP. How did we come about this? How did the Republican Party come about this? And why is it only being implemented in Phoenix?
Well, it's actually being implementing around the country.
Good.
We're just starting in Phoenix. It's one of the places that we just have started this effort. And I think where it kind of came from, or where I know it came from, is the fact that this is Biden's gas hike. This is the policies of the Biden administration have led to this massive increase in gas prices. And that's why when you look at polls, 70% of Americans disapprove of how Biden is handling gas prices. So we thought the best place to reach voters are where they're feeling the pain of Biden's policies the most. So we're starting at gas stations. We're starting in Arizona, and it's going to be rolled out across the country.
The pinning a lot on gas prices, does that run the risk of having a negative effect should gas prices come down? Should we see a swing in or a shift in policy in the near future?
Well, if we see a shift in policy in the near future that actually leads to unleashing American energy, great. As a consumer of gas myself, I'd rather be paying lower gas prices than trying to make a political point. The ultimate point is that we want gas prices to come down. So anything that brings those down is great. And gas prices do tend to fluctuate, but what I think Biden is forgetting by blaming this all on Putin is that gas prices were up north of $1 before Putin invaded Ukraine. The reason why we are in such a weak position to actually handle that supply chain shock is because Biden has attacked American energy. There's an analysis from Dan Sullivan from Alaska showing that if we were back at pre-Biden production patterns, we'd be producing 300,000 more barrels of oil a day, which would obviously bring down costs. So nothing from Biden indicates he's going to reverse his policies and unleash American energy. I hope he does for the sake of my own pocketbook. But if he's not, we need to put pressure on him, and we need to get Republicans in there to make sure that we pass policies and hold them accountable after 2022.
Okay, I'm glad you brought up Russia, and Russia not being the main factor behind this, because while what's going on in Russia, uncertainty in a global market will affect things naturally, but this is a problem that started long before that. So even if everything clears up in Russia before, let's say, before midterms, even if everything clears up in Russia, we're not out of this crisis yet. And I say that from a studio in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and oil and gas is our economy's bread and butter.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly right. Putin obviously had an effect on prices. I mean, no one's denying that, but it's not the reason why prices are so high. Prices have gone up from the moment Joe Biden took office, the moment he started enacting his anti-energy agenda, because oil is a futures market. I mean, I think a powerful example of the impact Biden could have if he actually reversed his policies is 2008, when you had high prices when President Bush was president. Mm-hmm. President Bush announced an initiative to drill more in the United States, and prices dropped as he was speaking, and as much as 70% in a matter of months, because oil was looking forward, realizing the U.S. was ramping up production. So Biden could have that impact. He's just decided not to. And I think that's one of the reasons why Americans really disapprove of him, because he could have an impact. And he's purposely deciding that instead he's going to cause pain at the pump. And that's why Americans are going to vote Republican, and that's why we're out registering as many voters as possible.
And this is the part that, like, as an average voter, this is the part that infuriates me. When prices on gas go up with a Democrat in office, we're told repeatedly, well, the president doesn't determine the price of gas. But the price of gas is determined by a simple supply and demand equation. Presidential or White House policy does determine that supply. It's just, I know if I'm overthinking it, maybe I'm overthinking it, but that's the way it translates to me, and I'm hoping it translates that way, or I hope I'm getting that translation right.
I think you are. Obviously, the oil production, oil producers produce oil. Obviously, there's other factors that go into oil production, such as new technologies. But the idea that the federal government has no effect is just ludicrous. Biden himself talked about ending, which is his word, ending the fossil fuel industry repeatedly during the campaign. Mm-hmm. So if he thought that the federal government could limit fossil fuel production, that he was lying during the campaign. He said that repeatedly. That was a fundamental promise of his campaign. They can end leases. They can put regulations in place. They can cancel cheap and safe, effective ways to transport that energy that would lower costs, such as the Keystone XL pipeline. There are so many things the federal government can do to make it where we unleash American energy, and Biden is doing the exact opposite on purpose. He promised to end the fossil fuel industry. He started doing that on day one, and that's why this is the Biden gas hike.
We were told that there's over 9,000 leases available in the Gulf that are going just one thing right now, and it's not a problem from the White House's standpoint. It's a problem from the industry standpoint that they're not using what's available. Here in Louisiana, we know a little bit better. It's more than just having a lease available. That lease has got to be usable as well. Do the nuances of the oil and gas industry translate nationwide?
I think they do. I think you're exactly right. There was a few weeks, maybe a few days, where that talking point was being used by the White House, and they're still using it here and there. But that just shows how they don't really understand how the oil and gas industry works. So I think it actually started to backfire on them a bit. And I think ultimately, just talking about the nuance of it, people see Joe Biden promising to end the fossil fuel industry. Then they show up to the gas pump after he touted these quote-unquote climate initiatives. Then they pull up to the gas pump and they see high gas prices. That's the reality. That's what Americans are seeing. That's why 70% disapprove of Biden's handling of gas prices. And they can try to make these excuses, but when their excuses change every week, they ring hollow. They've already moved on from blaming Putin. They're now blaming, like you mentioned, oil companies. They're blaming a new person seemingly every week for not just gas prices, but inflation in general. And the American people aren't buying it because not only are they not consistent, their logic doesn't make any sense, especially when the whole point of their policies, like I'll say again, just because it's mind-boggling for me, the whole point of their policies was to raise the price of gas, to force this transition under a radical climate agenda. Well, that was the whole point.
Then there's the trickle-down effect of this, that when you raise the price of gas, you raise the price of everything that has to be transported by gas as well, which is not a small factor when you look at the price in our grocery stores or literally anywhere else out there.
That's exactly right, and I think it's an important point, given that there was rapid inflation before we saw the record gas prices. Gas prices have been going up since the day he took office, but there's other parts of the economy that are also seeing rapid increases independent of that. So again, Biden has put us in a really weak position to handle any of these circumstances because we're already seeing record inflation. We're already seeing a 40-year high in inflation, and that's only set to get worse as these gas prices ripple throughout the economy. I think an interesting measure, besides just the consumer prices, which are at something like 7.9% year over year, are producer prices, which are at 10% year over year. And producer prices kind of indicate what consumers might be seeing, because those are the wholesale prices that stores and restaurants and other businesses get before they pass those along to consumers. So every single indication is that inflation is only going to get worse. And again, just like with gas prices, Biden doesn't want to take responsibility, even though economist after economist has said his radical spending is to blame.
And the irony of it is any money I would have saved to buy a Tesla is going right back into the pump right now. He's Tommy Pigott, Rapid Response Director for the RNC. It's a fun story. Well, it's not fun for the reason we have to have it, but I do dig the strategy. Appreciate your time.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Thanks. We are super late for a break. Let's take a break. We'll check traffic. We'll check your money now. We're coming back next. If there's any promos in there, please delete them. Like if there's any of that, hey, yeah. That way we'll get out on time. What's happening, dude?
Not too much. How about y'all?
Doing all right.
Could be bad today, you think?
Yeah, I do. I think this afternoon's going to suck ass.
Okay. I'm gonna go upstairs and have your stream going, and I'll pull quotes and stuff. When you're talking about it at what time?
7:35, I've got Fred Raiford on. And then 8:35, I've got Josh Eachus. The one with Josh Eachus is going to have a shorter shelf life than Fred Raiford because we're going to be talking more about the actual weather with Josh, which is going to change hour by hour. It's good for repurposing till about 11. Fred Raiford's good.
I'm about to go pull whatever their most recent report is and slap our graphics on it, too.
Okay. The one with Fred Raiford is going to be more all day long. We just talk about the prep and whatnot because even once we're in it, it's still good.
Yep. Okay. Cool.
Thank you.
Faster upstairs, so I'll have y'all on. But if you need anything, I'll be listening.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, I will appreciate the viewership. Thank you, Jay. You need a permit to see if there is oil, then you need a permit to produce with lease sales in between. Yes. Yes. So you grab your permit on a lease. There's nothing there. And now there's a lease that is being unused. Oh, I didn't write down anything about these Kamala Harris cuts. Okay. Okay. All right. The Michelangelo exhibit coming to the River Center. You can win tickets later today. Visit talk1073.com to learn how you can see Michelangelo over at the River Center. Right now, here's your money now. And I'm counting that as my promo. I'm not doing that again. RNC should use the same strategy at grocery stores. Oh, totally. Mary State. Scusi. Bless you. I'm going to have to do these Kamala Harris cuts off of memory because all I wrote down was like Harris 1, Harris 2, Harris 3. And I didn't write it all down while I was doing it. I did this at 4:30 this morning. Yeah. On YouTube as well. I'm going to get in trouble on the back end. I'll do it on the front end. I'll cue the after the first Harris cut. Oh. .653 Talk 107.3 FM WBRP. Yeah, that accident on the Basin Bridge is going to be problematic throughout the morning drive. So take your necessary precautions if it affects your usual route. Going to get you to Vice President Kamala Harris was in Sunset, Louisiana yesterday. Going to get you to that in just a second. Got to tell you about the folks over at Matherns. Look, I've been telling you all morning long, and I will continue to. This weather is going to get nasty this afternoon. Today would be a great time to go ahead and use the Matherns app. Obviously, you don't want them bringing your groceries out to your car in the middle of a storm. You also don't want to waste your time if you've only got until about noon before the rain really starts coming down. If you've got to knock out some grocery shopping today or grabbing some light snacks for the afternoon off when the boss is going to send everyone home, hit up the Matherns app. Do your grocery shopping before you leave work. Pull into the parking lot. They bring it out to you. Boom, you are on your way before the rain gets here. It's a beautiful thing. Downtown on 3rd Street, Nicholson Gateway Shopping Center. Oh, by the way, it's only Tuesday right now. I know that. But Fridays in Lent, you're looking for your Lenten specials. You can get the fried catfish over at the lunch counter or boiled shrimp. And they're good, too, y'all. Not last Friday, the Friday before I had them. Oh, so good. Downtown on 3rd. Nicholson Gateway Shopping Center. It's the Matherns grocery store. Download the Matherns app today. All right, Vice President Kamala Harris was in Sunset, Louisiana yesterday. Now, the vice president has kind of grown a reputation for saying nonsensical things when she speaks to the public. I think I've actually figured out why she does what she does or why it's interpreted now that I've seen it locally. But it's crazy. Like, a microphone is open and she will say things that absolutely make zero sense. Harris, cut one, if you would, please, Jake.
Let me say this. This is an issue that Josie actually highlighted in terms of the importance of this. The governor and I, and we were all doing a tour of the library here, and talking about the significance of the passage of time, right? The significance of the passage of time. So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs. And there is such great significance to the passage of time when we think about a day in the life of our children.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
Sorry. Actually, sorry, not sorry. Kind of had to. Referencing Billy Madison right there. Okay, I think I figured it out. We see it on the news all the time. We see it on social media all the time. She'll say something like that. The passage of time is important to respect to the passage of time. If you backtrack just a little bit, she's not talking to the audience. She's not talking to the camera. She's not talking to anybody else except for the people who were backstage before the talk happened. Before she hit the podium, before she hit the mic, before the lights were on and the cameras were, the microphones were hot, she's having a private conversation, and she's trying to relate that private conversation to everyone, but the only people who understand what that actually meant about the passage of time, they had to be there 5 minutes prior for the conversation before the conversation. She's got to break that habit because it's an awful-looking habit. It just doesn't translate well. Meanwhile, the vice president was there to talk about expanding broadband coverage in Louisiana. This is all part of the bipartisan infrastructure package that got passed, the one we've talked with Senator Kennedy about so much.
President Biden and I, well, we've been working day in and day out to build an economy that works for working people. an economy in which every person has what they need to get ahead and to thrive. High-speed broadband internet is critical to that effort. In the 21st century, high-speed internet is a necessity, full stop. It is a necessity.
You said full stop.
And so much of our world, if we think about it, has moved online. Throughout the pandemic, people depended on high-speed internet like never before. Business owners used the internet to sell their goods. Parents used the internet to buy their groceries. Seniors used the internet to see their doctor. Young people to attend virtual classes, all without ever leaving home. So for many of us, for so many of us, the internet has been and continues to be essential for us to perform our everyday needs. It is an integrated part of our daily lives.
There are far too many people without the access to the internet, and we get that, and that's why this bill was important and is important. And that's why the mission moving forward with getting broadband throughout our state and the rest of the country is important as well. I'm looking up at the clock. I don't know if it's cut 3 or cut 4. Let's go with cut 4. She talks about some of the consequences of those who don't have broadband.
That means students are sitting in fast food restaurant parking lots, doing their homework over public Wi-Fi, because that is the only place they can receive access. It means seniors are seeing doctors and medical professionals during their telemedicine visits in local public libraries. Now just imagine what that means. That you're sitting there talking with your medical health professional surrounded by people.
Okay, then switch. Let the old people go to the fast food place and the kids go to the library. This works out for everybody. I'm just kidding. There's a lot more to it, but we got a break for news. How are you going to tell me the only place you can do your homework is in the parking lot of McDonald's, and then in the same breath say seniors got to go to the library for their telehealth visits? First of all, seniors, go to your damn doctor. We're at a point now in the pandemic where telehealth is a nice convenience, not a necessity. If that's where if you've got to drive to the library, you can drive to your doctor. Meanwhile, you're going to tell me that the kids who can go to the library can only access the internet from a McDonald's parking lot? Yeah, keep them. I don't know if I'm going to use them or not. We're not going to have time at any point unless a guest bails on us. I don't know. Ooh. Just keep them. If you have to close them out, they're in today's folder. We can reopen them. Adam Knapp. It's been a good month or so. We're trying to mix it up a lot more. Adam's a little bit too humble. I don't think he appreciates the level of information he brings to the table. But I get it. Hey, the passage of time is important in respect to the passage of time. Y'all know I'm going to get hate for doing that Billy Madison thing, right? I don't care. That was funny. I shouldn't have backed off of it, though. Paige Beckers! Yo, she's all over Good Morning America. Frick, man. Notre Dame. Notre Dame's going to wreck UConn. Eric's okay. Colton says, "I'll take mean tweets for $1.95." Alex, RIP. That's funny. Eric says, "What the f? How did she get to her place in her life? Never mind. We know." I don't. Yeah, maybe. It must have been torture to grade her law school exams. A lot of margin comments, starting with, "Huh? Huh? Oh, you know what I need to do? Even funnier than Billy Madison would be a Kamala Harris, Dave Chappelle as Lil Jon remix. Huh? What? She sounds more like she was touring one of the medical marijuana farms in the state. Smoked it with Tupac. That's only because Tupac's not dead. The phrase "all head, no cattle." Okay, Galen, I have asked this question when we've had Vineeth on. Galen says rural broadband is using the "if we build it, they will come" strategy. But I'm not sure rural people will appreciate broadband enough to pay for it. Then all we have is a network without customers. I've asked this about, like, what about the people that move to the country because they don't want to be part of the network? They want to be disconnected. And there's just no way to quantify it with a number. But I'm with you, man. I don't think you probably think the number's higher than I do, but I believe that number exists. And look, there's a flip side to that, Galen. Oh, wait, you put something else up. No one is talking about what the recurring cost to customers will be for rural broadband. How can we gauge market demand without prices? Wait, let me think that one through. That's solid. That's good. How can we gauge market demand without prices? Yes, it's like when you're polled about something, but not about. You're polled about, like, do you care about, and then they'll put X, Y, and Z, but they don't ask you to what level you care. It's a good question. Okay. Crap, I had something else to say, and you derailed me with that. That's a damn good question. My biggest problem with the whole thing is if you move to the country and complain that there's no broadband, that's like moving next to an airport and complaining about the noise. You knew what you were getting. You knew what this was. Hey, where do you want to live? I want to live near nobody and then complain that I'm not connected to anybody. 706 Talk 107.3 FM WBRP, hour 2 of Mornings with Brian Haldane, rolling right along. So, in spite of the nature of the comments from the vice president, we have sparked a lot of conversation on our YouTube channel. Mornings with Brian Haldane on YouTube. Hop on, subscribe. There's tons of feedback, tons of conversation throughout the show every single day. It is a different experience than just listening on the radio. Mornings with Brian Haldane on YouTube, which, by the way, coming up later on today, when we do our emergency coverage at noon, we will be on YouTube there as well. So hopefully that will be just as interactive, as that is a point in time where the storm should be getting here, as we are expecting nasty, nasty, severe weather today. You heard the forecast from Marissa. I need to reiterate something that she said right there, simply because meteorologist Marissa Nuzzo, I'm not like just referring to her by her first name. Anyway, I need to reiterate something that she said right there because it sounds so complacent, but it's not. The terminology, we're looking at a 4 out of 5 moderate risk of severe weather. Moderate does not sound bad at all. Moderate sounds very wishy-washy. What if I told you instead we're at the second highest level of risk for severe weather? Doesn't that sound a lot worse? On the scale, it goes 1 through 5. Moderate is 4 out of 5. The word moderate, no real 2-minute drill on this one. But if I tell you second highest level of risk, well, hello. A little bit different. So, anyway, we will be with you throughout the morning here until 9 a.m., social media 9 to noon, back on air at noon as I'm really expecting the worst with this storm. It's rather unpredictable. It's not going to be straight across the region. It will be pinpointed. It'll be tornadic activity throughout. CBS News was reporting earlier this morning. I missed it at the top of the hour right there because I was talking with everybody on YouTube as to whether or not we've had more tornadoes touch down. As of 6 o'clock this morning, that number was 17. And this bad boy ain't even gotten to Louisiana yet. More on the weather as it unfolds. Get the top stories and trending in just a second. Need to remind you about the folks over at Complete Collision Center. They've got 2 locations in Baton Rouge. Hey, look, I want everybody off the road by noon today. But if you are out in inclement weather, that is when more people are more likely to get into an accident. If you find yourself in an accident, you need to know where you're taking your car before you get into that accident. That's why I tell you about the folks over at Complete Collision Center. Certified by more than a dozen major car manufacturers, iCar Gold Class certification. What does that mean? Puts them in the top 15% of body shops nationwide. I mean, it just sounds cool. We're iCar Gold Class, baby. Yeah, it sounds cool, but there's a lot more to it than just that. Visit CompleteCollisionCenter.com. CompleteCollision.com. CompleteCollision.com. Learn about that iCar Gold Class certification. Learn about how they'll learn the difference between repair and replace. And when it comes to getting your family back on the road safely, that is unbelievably important. They know how to find hidden damage. They know how to get you and your family back on the road safely. 768-9898 is the phone number, 768-9898, or visit CompleteCollision.com. Don't let who you choose to repair your vehicle be your second accident. Check out CompleteCollision.com. Time for top stories and trending. Let's go. Due to anticipated inclement weather, city parish businesses or city parish buildings will close to the public early, closing at noon today. Residents should monitor local weather reports, seek shelter during the severe weather. Register for Red Stick Ready text alerts by texting Red Stick Ready, all capital letters, to 225-243-9991. Back to the lead sentence of that story. You got any city parish business you need to tend to? City parish buildings are closing at noon. Also closing at noon, LSU going to shut it down at noon today due to the forecast of severe weather. University putting out a press release last night. Classes and activities scheduled for 12 p.m. or later are canceled. LSU online students should check with their learner concierge or faculty member for more information on those 100% online programs. Residence halls, on-campus apartments, and dining halls will remain open. Check the LSU dining website for updates regarding dining hall hours. For information about bus services, check the parking and bus website. Essential employees at LSU, you might want to check in with your supervisors to know if you are in that number of going home today. Statewide offices shutting down as well. Acadia, Allen, Beauregard, Calcasieu, Cameron, Evangeline, Iberia, Eberville, Jeff Davis, Lafayette, Point Capice, St. Landry, St. Martin, St. Mary, Vermilion, and West Baton Rouge. All of these places have state offices closed today. Closing at noon today, you will have Ascension, Assumption, East Baton Rouge, East Feliciana, Livingston, St. Helena, St. James, St. John the Baptist, St. Tammany, Tangipahoa, Washington, and West Feliciana will be closing at noon. All right, stepping away from today's weather. A Baton Rouge man accused of strangling a woman and fatally stabbing her roommate in their West Brookstown Drive apartment in 2020 no longer faces second-degree murder charges in the gruesome double homicide. According to Joe Guyon from The Advocate, prosecutors dismissed those counts against 50-year-old Albert Carter last week, but EBR District Attorney Hiller Moore said Monday the investigation into the senseless killings of Sadie Thomas and Roland Franklin remains open. Franklin and Carter are cousins, Moore said. Guyon reports the victims' bodies were found on May 19th of 2020 when Baton Rouge police conducted a welfare check at their address in the 4100 block of West Brookstown near the intersection with Prescott. They discovered a gruesome scene after knocking down the door. Here's the thing, though. They were discovered on May 19th. The killing could have happened anytime from May 14th until then. By the way, it was an anonymous Crime Stoppers tip that actually led to the call that led to the discovery in the. An anonymous Crime Stoppers tip that led to the arrest in this case. All right, once again, stepping away from the storm, a 7-vehicle pileup right now. You heard Ashley Frugier report on it at the top of the hour. I'm not saving this for the outside in, even though it's for Eberville Parish. State troopers are working on a major crash on I-10 that involves 7 vehicles, including 2 18-wheelers. The crash happened around 1:30 this morning. I-10 eastbound before the Rama exit. So far, state police reports only minor injuries from the crash. Hazmat crews on the scene, but only as a precautionary measure. This does have traffic shut down on I-10 as a result of it. So I-10 eastbound. So if you're coming in from Lafayette, you're going to have to get off the interstate at I-49. If you know someone coming in from Lafayette, go ahead and let them know now. Get off the interstate before I-49 so you don't have to sit any more of this than you absolutely have to. Those are your top stories. Here's a look at what's trending this morning. The House Transportation Committee approved legislation once again to ban handheld cell phones while driving. Breaux Bridge Representative Mike Huval says his legislation is intended to promote safe driving behavior and not for the police to issue a bunch of tickets. Quote, if you go in front of the judge, you don't even have to pay the ticket. He can give you community service. Again, we are not doing this to give tickets. We are not doing this to raise money. If you happen to want to pay for it instead of community service, of course, you can pay for it. Now's a good time to talk about the law of unintended consequences. Yes, it's going to be handled for writing tickets. And yes, people are going to pay the tickets because, well, if you can afford to pay the ticket, you're just going to pay the ticket. Louisiana House approved Huval's handheld cell phone bill while driving last year. It failed to pass on the Senate side by 1 vote. The Transportation Committee gave unanimous support of the bill. That's not to say they support the bill. That just means they know the bill needs to move on. That's the top stories in trending. Let's take a quick break. Talk to Adam Knapp from the Baton Rouge Area Chamber next. You know, I hope they pass this bill, and it clogs up the damn courts with people arguing that they weren't texting or weren't using their handheld cell. We're innocent until proven guilty, and this is going to create scenarios where you're guilty until proven innocent. Hey, you were texting while driving. No, I wasn't. Let me see your phone. No. 718 Talk 107.3 FM WBRP. Coming up in our next segment, we're going to check in with Fred Raiford to talk about storm prep, as it's going to get nasty around noon today throughout the rest of the afternoon. Right now, though, let's talk about BRAC, the Baton Rouge Area Chamber. It's time to talk about Bring It Baton Rouge, and it's time to welcome in Adam Knapp from the Chamber. Adam, welcome back, sir. How are you, man?
I'm doing great. Got my galoshes ready for the day, man. Let's go.
It's going to be brutal later on today. But before we get to that, though, 5-year regional strategic plan. Let's break it down. What are we looking at?
So the big thing for your listeners is to know that the work of economic development has really been shifting a lot during this COVID period, but it was shifting before that. Mm-hmm. For us, we recognize is that, as we think about what makes companies make decisions about where they make long-term investments, how we diversify the economy, all those things come back to a priority around the talent migration into and out of a community. And for us, we've seen too many times that somebody we know has gone to college here and gone to work somewhere else, or after college, maybe not finding the right opportunity to move back, or don't know about them when they do occur. And so a lot of those, as you think about that happening across a broader population, it can make a big difference to how economic development works. And so our focus is really to say that it's got to be our kind of our universal focus on everything we do to think about what are those decisions we make, how they impact how talent makes decisions. Really, in the summary of this is talent becomes a currency for economic development as we think about how we approach it. And that is a reframing of the economic development work that we do from the focus on deals and transactions alone to really focusing on what makes the underlying decisions for those projects happen. And so that's really the shift. To bring it is about an attitude, really. It's about a kind of a sense of urgency to make sure that we're focusing on how does Baton Rouge bring it every day to make sure that we're ready for a future, that we're ready for folks to choose to live in our communities across the 9-parish region. And that's really what's going to drive business decisions. We've seen from two recent company examples, Brian, Origin Materials, which is locating a renewables facility in Geismar. They're really focused on being here because of the talent supply that we have to support petrochemicals is really the same that will be necessary for this new renewables future that's coming. And then the second one is this technology company, Rural Sourcing. They came to look at Baton Rouge as a destination for a tech center for their company to locate about 150 software programmers. And they said, look, Baton Rouge has this really great supply of diverse talent. We want to be right in the heart of that community in downtown, proximity to LSU, proximity to Southern Community College at BRCC, and be right in the heart of it. But they're here because of people, not because of necessarily any kind of other factors that help influence that decision. And those two examples show you how you diversify the economy around a people-centric strategy.
Well, let's talk about that workforce and either recruiting or maintaining the workforce, recruiting and maintaining the people. As far as this being a problem is concerned, it's not new. It's been around for a year. We used to call it the brain drain. But the methods in approaching it are different. So how is BRAC going to be approaching it differently over the next 5 years?
It's a great question. So we actually grow in population. This is the reason why that phrase is not necessarily the right one to us is Baton Rouge in the census data has continued to grow. In fact, we've grown at a faster rate than the census experts thought we were going to be. The problem we see is we're not necessarily growing as fast as we need to be in this population group of 25 to 44-year-olds. Right. So this is really a focus squarely on young professionals. And how do we make sure that folks that move in, we have this high in-migration of 18-year-olds to be a college town, right? We've got 55,000 students across our colleges and universities. And that number may surprise people how big that number is. But as they come in, how do they find opportunities at small and mid-sized businesses using tools like Handshake? Employers can recruit our students to make sure it's more likely that they get an internship in our community and stay here. All the way to when they're out of college, how do they set roots? How do they build networks? How do they build friendship groups that deepen their commitment to the community and their connection to the communities that we operate in? And that is true whether you're in downtown Baton Rouge or in Denham Springs, that you have this sense of place that you attach to. And that's it's really a focus now.
We are a college town, yes. We are also a port city. We are also a capital city. There are a number of college towns that can sell themselves as just college towns. How do you approach this knowing that we've got multiple personas for possible pitches to young professionals?
Well, you just nailed it. So what's interesting is when you step back and think about the presence of a premier public research university in LSU and how many of our SEC peers, or frankly any research university peers, are also in a capital city. That list dwindles. And that distinction of being kind of a destination community with a strong manufacturing base, when you look at places that have that combination, they have enough of a mix of options that it really creates a strong, diverse economy. And we see that already. What we want to see is more of that. And so it's the combination of those things that's the force multiplier. Brian, you kind of nailed that idea that it is not just one of these identities. It's kind of the combination of all of them together that makes it special.
Let's get down to some of the nitty-gritty for what those 25 to 44-year-olds are looking for. And one of the things in the press release about the regional strategic plan is creating a more inclusive economy. What goes into that?
Yeah, so we actually noticed that in a lot of the survey data about people's satisfaction with the community they're in, and this is, again, when we always talk regionally when we say that, that a lot of folks look at Baton Rouge and feel like that it is not a place that is welcoming to them. We actually saw a lot of respondents saying that this is not as open a community as we think it is. And while it's making strides, there's a question of whether that has a big effect on talent migration choices. And so what we've seen also in the data is the places that have grown the fastest. This was probably one of the most surprising and informative pieces of research that we got. We looked across 40 different cities. And in the 40 different cities that we looked across, they're all roughly the size of Baton Rouge in the U.S. Southeast. And of those 40 communities that we looked at, the ones that had the best outcomes on a set of data we looked at for economic inclusion, these are on our website, they also had the fastest job growth overall, not just among minorities or diverse communities. It was across the entire population. So as you go well into the work of economic inclusion, making sure that you're helping more folks access the benefits of the economy, more likely is that your community is going to grow at a faster rate. Places like Fayetteville, Arkansas, Nashville, Tennessee, Asheville, North Carolina, we're up in the kind of the top growth and top inclusion outcomes kind of set. So it's fascinating for us to see that.
How far can one of the steps along the way? It says drive investment into neighborhoods in need. How far can BRAC go in this particular regard? Because the neighborhoods that are in need are, to be blunt about it, in need for a very serious reason, and that often has to circle around crime. How far can Baton Rouge go to help with that?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I think a lot of this has to do with making sure that services are there to help address those areas that are seeing disinvestment. But it's also that there's some, let's say like some really great opportunities for folks to collectively take a risk, to make an investment. There are plenty of federal and state incentives that make it attractive and help kind of moderate the risk as you make those investments, that you can see market rate returns for those investments if you can kind of watch to kind of how each other follow into those investments. And so I'll use the example of if you go along Florida Boulevard, you've seen already parts of Florida that maybe 10 years ago, 15 years ago, you didn't think would be able to come back. They're making a kind of a resurgence as Amazon has made a bet at Cortana. Take that same principle forward as these kind of investments follow each other. You can see how reinvestment can occur. And that's what we expect to see more opportunities for.
When it comes to that, what are some of the outlets that are available for reinvestment? How does BRAC help in that regard?
So we're just at the beginning of working through these ideas. What we've seen is, for example, the federal government set up a program called the Opportunity Zone program. And the idea of this was set up to try to help use federal tax code. If you have an investment in a piece of real estate and you are trying to make sure that you don't have to pay a capital gain when you sell that real estate, current real estate law lets you reinvest into another piece of real estate and kind of carry forward your capital gains into that property. Instead of paying them, you can kind of reinvest them. That same principle holds true with Opportunity Zone investments, that you can make investments into a property, into, let's say, an Opportunity Zone tract, which is like some of the 25% lowest income tracts in the country have been set aside in these zones. you can make investments in those communities and see this real estate transferal benefit to protect your capital gains. So the idea of those kinds of programs holds true, that you can kind of help folks figure out how to use those tools and then do so in a coordinated fashion. You can sort of drive reinvestment, and that's the sort of some of the things we're starting to explore.
What is the business owner's role in this? Because the Baton Rouge Area Chamber is, after all, a collection of the business community throughout the region. What's the business owner's role in this? How can we all take ownership?
Yeah, so we've seen across the business community an overwhelming response of enthusiasm to this sort of collection of ideas we've put forward, the four-pronged plan we call the Bring It Baton Rouge plan. And through this sort of business community response, we've been excited that they want to see all of these things happen and happening with a greater sense of speed and response and urgency to get things moving in the right direction. What we've seen is when we focus our sights on a kind of a big goal, we saw this in our plan from 2016, when we keep pressing hard on those issues like transportation funding, we can see big problems attacked as a collective action, right? So we saw about $300 million of capital investment maybe back in 2015. Today we're at $1.5 billion in capital investment towards transportation solutions in Baton Rouge. That's a huge amount of work to try to get the forces all moving in the right direction to try to tackle these problems. So we feel like knowing that we have identified specific problems, that we can direct resources toward these. I'll highlight one that we're excited to say is a big piece of this. Baton Rouge has never really marketed itself for young professional talent nationally. And as we've heard from business leaders, that's one of their biggest concerns, is just making sure that they're finding talent that it's going to take to succeed for the next 5 to 10 years. So us pulling our resources and saying, hey, we're going to go launch national marketing and regional marketing to make sure that the talent that's around the country knows some of the great options that are here in Baton Rouge, across mostly small and mid-sized employers, but across all employers, that we want to make sure we get the word out. So things like that, we can see that their reinvestment in BRAC is giving us the possibility of going out and launching that campaign, as one example.
I mean, after years and years and years of hearing that's not who we are, it's nice to see something be a catalyst for it. That's who we could be. He's Adam Knapp from the Baton Rouge Area Chamber. I really appreciate your time, man. We're just straight about time for this morning.
Bring it.
Bring it, absolutely. Adam Knapp from the Chamber. Oh, hopping on board this morning. No, and the pandemic, it's going to sound weird to say it out loud. The pandemic has been a catalyst for this change. The pandemic has proven you don't have to be in Northern California to work in the tech sector. The pandemic has proven where lower cost of living and quality of life means a lot more than geographical location. It puts us on the map for so much more. Here comes CBS News, followed by our own local news, traffic, and weather. Yeah, have you talked to a lot of thieves and asked them if they know what the sentencing was for the catalytic converters they've already stolen? If you asked a thief who stole a catalytic converter, what were you at risk of when you stole this? Do you honestly think they could tell you? And if they can't tell you what the penalties were today, they damn sure aren't going to pay attention to what the penalties are tomorrow. They steal because they're stealing. Shit. I'm like hot about everything this morning. I'm cranky this morning. Screw it. Yeah! Whatever. Hey, y'all go to Best of 225 and vote for me, please. I keep forgetting to remind people. Oh, man. That's what you talked about? Oh, shit. Thank you, Troy. I needed to laugh right then. That was awesome. Oh, if you're not reading the comments, you don't have the comments open. Troy says, bad timing for BRAC by paying for development of Bring It when Boot Up suddenly became available. Oh, God. Oh, God. That would. So when he said Bring It at the end, that was the first thing I thought of as well. Was hanging up with Will Wayne here and Boot Up as the last thing from every press conference. Oh, poor Adam would have just cringed if I had said that. Oh, God, that's so good. Yeah! I got to redo this commercial. It's a couple weeks old. We all know Winn-Dixie is closed. If Adam had told me it was going to rain today, I wouldn't believe him. Baton Rouge is dead. People are leaving the city, and it's not a special place. The numbers don't back you up there. There are people leaving, but there's also a ton of people coming in. You bring up a good point, though, without saying it, and that is... So I started to address it by asking about crime. Problem is, economic development people don't deal in crime. So it's not on his plate. And I'm not going to ask the chief about fighting crime as an economic development tool. Kicks up the leadership, though, doesn't it? I gotta figure out how I'm gonna get to the gym today. I'm gonna need to blow off some steam after this day. For the rest of the day? It's Tuesday. I've got Ghost Slim. I'll do Ghost Slim and BR Mattress next hour. Or even though they're not. They're supposed to be on there. I'll get with somebody to figure. Yeah. All right, then. 737 at Talk 107.3 FM WBRP. Mornings with Brian Haldane rolling right along. So we've got the morning and then we've got the afternoon. And this day is going to look completely different between the two. The afternoon's going to be nasty. Got just a few hours left for any prep time. If you got anything to knock out, we're looking at some severe storms coming through the area. Joining us now to talk about that is Fred Raiford. Fred, welcome back, sir. How are you, man?
I'm doing good, Brian. How about you?
Doing very well this morning. Let's talk about prepping for a storm. You are the go-to guy for this. What's the rundown look like for the next couple of hours?
Well, certainly, we're getting all our staffing ready to go because we anticipate, not only a lot of rain, but also some substantial winds, and that's going to create even more issues with us with trees down and also signals malfunctioning and things like that. But our crews are out looking at many of our waterways right now to look and be sure we don't have any major blockages that would impede water flow, especially on the major outfalls. We also have put out, our traffic people have put out a high water barricades where we anticipate water that normally builds up in these areas, try to keep people from trying to drive through those areas. And, we're looking at our pump stations. We have a couple of them that we check periodically just to be sure from a water standpoint, from the I-110 curve, the governor's curve, where the water gets up over that. Then we also are watching very closely on the Terrace Street pump station. And the last thing is what we've been doing since June of last year. We're continually having with the contract clearing out a lot of our storm drains and pipes and storm drain boxes, debris from removal, a lot of those areas. So, we're continuing to be busy. We're always going to be busy, Brian, and these rain events just kind of step up the pace a little bit more. That's it.
Did I read correctly that since June of last year, 10.5 million pounds of debris has been removed from those drain boxes and pipes?
Yes, sir. That's correct. And when you look at it, people say, well, that's a lot. It is. And certainly anytime you can remove that much obstruction from a drain pipe or boxes where water does drain off the streets, certainly it's going to enhance your drainage. Maybe not resolve all of it, but certainly from my standpoint, we're moving in that right direction, trying to get a lot of our boxes and our drain pipe open. So when we do get these type of rain events, it gets to these outfalls like they're supposed to.
June of 2021 is an important time marker there because it followed May of 2021 where we saw a significant flood. Not as bad as 2016, but we did see some significant flooding with that storm from May of last year. Are we expecting this storm to be comparable in nature, although hopefully not comparable in effect?
Well, Brian, I hope not. Certainly from our perspective, you look at the weather reports and you look what happened in the west direction over there. They've taken some substantial water in some locations, but the biggest issue seems to be more of a wind issue, tornadoes, destructive wind. And to me, that can be just as much of a problem as flooding. So, but we're going to be ready and prepared to address either one of the situations at this point and be ready to respond to when we need to.
When it comes to the blockages in the waterways, this is something that your office has taken a particular interest in over the last year and taken to heart, and it lends back to that 10.5 million pounds, although that's from a different area. How frequently are y'all out there regularly, like the regular checks for blockages? Where does that fall versus where we're at today?
Well, Brian, when you have rain events, significant rain events, you would go in there and you would check and see those locations periodically, and that's what they normally would do. Now, on our major outfalls, we normally try to get those scheduled about once a month to go by and look at those locations on the outfalls, like Wards Creek and Jones Creek and things like that, where there may be blockages by the bridges. We have people check those areas and be sure that they open and to reduce whatever restrictions may be out there. So we do that pretty often. Mm-hmm. The big thing is what we're going to be seeing here real near future is getting these major channels cleared and snagged, which are part of that tributary project, which we already will be starting Jones Creek probably sometimes next month. Mm-hmm. They're clearing and snagging from the Amite River all the way up to O'Neill Lane, and we just took bids on Bayou Fountain, and we'll be getting that approved sometime also next month. So we're moving in that right direction, starting at the outfalls, working ourselves upstream.
Yeah, it's difficult when you're in the middle of an overall plan that, you have events like this in the middle of it they're going to be setbacks along the way. Hey, Fred, can I ask you about those blockages themselves? Do you have any kind of breakdown of like how many of them are natural versus how many are caused by man? How many are like, somebody threw a mattress or a refrigerator into a creek, somebody dropped a bike into a creek, that sort of thing?
Well, Brian, all it takes is one branch, and next thing else that comes in picks up from that and picks up from other things. But, in reality, there have been some occasions where we've had refrigerators and, we've had ice makers and where they've actually been put in storm drain boxes and create a problem. And that you didn't fall from the sky, that's for sure. And that's something that we try to address and get them clean as quickly as possible and remove those obstructions. But as far as numbers, I would say that most of it's probably due to natural issues in the channels. Okay. But in the storm drain boxes, I would say a lot of that comes from just people not knowing what that impact may be doing by putting blocks and bricks in the storm drain box or blowing leaves and trash into the storm drain boxes. Once it's in that box, then it's got to get through that pipe. If it catches anywhere in that pipe, it don't go very far, and then water starts backing up. People get concerned, and then we have to go out and make these adjustments.
Let's talk about the streets a little bit. You mentioned high water barricades. We all know the usual suspects when it comes to where that's going to happen. Acadian Thruway Underpass is one that always comes to mind. What's the protocol here as to when things get blocked off, and how it feels like it's inevitable, no matter what y'all do to try and get people to not pass through the low-lying areas or the high water areas. We always hear about one. What's the protocol here to get people to stop?
Well, certainly, Brian, and you're absolutely right. And I don't know how many times that we have stressed the safety message, turn around, don't drown. And, we've had situations on our overpasses where water gets high and people think they can get through, and next thing you know, then they can't. We put up the barricades once we see water start getting to a level under the underpass to the point where we need to go ahead and do that, because people, if they see a little water, they'll continue to go through. And so we do put the barricades up. We have people checking it periodically, especially from my traffic division, to do that. And while DOTD is still responsible for the Acadian underpass, we have also been involved in that process, making sure that we shut that off as quickly as possible. Bluebonnet is one that we also have to be sure that people don't travel through those areas because of high water conditions. And in the future, you're going to see us where we're going to have actually these gates that will drop down, which will try to prevent people from trying to move the barricades and go around them and go through and go into the underpass regardless. But I think we're doing everything we can do to protect the motoring public, and I think that's what we're supposed to do.
That's news. The gates that drop down.
Yes, we've been looking at other cities, and there's some places that do that. It'll be at locations, particularly on Bluebonnet. Mm-hmm. That's the one that now is under the city's control. And with the improvements that we're making on Bluebonnet, we also wanted to be sure that we included these type of gates that will be at the lights at Picardy and also at I can't think of the street, but the other light just south of the underpass. Mm-hmm. And where it will close off and people will not be able to get there because of high water conditions, and they'll be diverted onto other streets. And to me, that's, does that solve all the problems? No, I'm sure there'll be people who will still try to get around it, but we're going to do everything we can to address the safety from our people. That's for sure.
Outside of the Acadian Thruway Underpass, which you said is DOTD, and then Bluebonnet is the other big one, what are a few of the other hot spots or the usual suspects when it comes to quick rising or high water areas?
Well, certainly we always have a lot of issues dealing with the scenic highway, particularly from Airline Highway north and the area up to Haldane. That's always a problem area, and we try to make sure that we get barricades out in those locations. And real world also, we have some areas around Nicholson and Burbank that where whenever we finish these improvements on Nicholson, we'll be able to clean out those ditches to where we need to be, which we believe will help resolve probably 90% of those issues in regards to drainage.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, those people who drive every day, they know where those trouble spots are. And not knowing how much rain we're going to get over today's time frame, and if it comes in a short period of time, that creates us more issues trying to keep people off the street and watch for high water conditions. Because if it rains and the intense rain we get sometimes, it can come up pretty quick, and then we may not be ready for that particular location because it's never been an issue in the past.
A lot can be done to prepare for high water. What can be done to prepare for wind?
Well, first off, for sure, anything you have loose objects that are around your house, furniture, plants and things like that, I would recommend to them to go put them in a safe place for wind can't get to them. That is going to be important from that standpoint. It's pretty evident with the storms that we've had in the past. A lot of people have done a lot of tree trimming, which I've seen and which is good. And the contractors have removed the debris from those areas, which it helps by the fact you don't have power lines being impacted. But just as important, you don't have trees falling on people's homes, which creates some real disruption in the family. So I think people have done some of their part from a standpoint of maintenance. Certainly when you get these big wind events, you're always going to have those challenges, which we will deal with on a case-by-case basis.
He is Fred Raiford, going to be out in the thick of it today. We appreciate the time, sir. Get after it. We know you'll be working hard.
I appreciate it, Brian, and thank you for allowing us to talk about a little bit about what's going to take place, and just ask everybody to please be safe. That's for sure.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Here comes your money now. Okay. He broke news right there. Drop down gates. Drop down gates, y'all. Ooh, excuse me. Well, that's remarkably out of date now. We've got to figure out about it. Chris has way too much on his plate. Excuse me. Oh, dadgummit, man. $7:56 Talk 107.3 FM WBRP. Thanks again to Fred Raiford for hopping on the hotline to talk a little bit about the preparations going into today's storms. We are expecting the weather to get very, very nasty sometime around noon and stay that way through about 6 o'clock. I'm continually updating what I'm looking at here, and I'm not seeing a whole lot of movement so far, which kind of worries me a little bit because the longer this thing sits here, the more we're going to get soaked. Yes, we are worried about the winds and the tornadic activity and the storms that are out in front of the squall line, but I'm also looking at the speed with which this thing moves. I'm thinking back to last May, right? It wasn't the intensity, it was the duration that caused the flooding. So, by the way, programming note, we'll be coming at you at noon today, picking up a little emergency storm coverage starting at noon. Don't know how long we're going to run once we pick up at noon. We might just continue to carry it all the way through the Jay Ducote show. We might be bailing a little bit earlier than that. But as most folks are going to be in it at noon, as most folks are going to be either bringing their kids home from school, getting themselves off of work after a half a day. Essentially, noon is afternoon drive today. So we're going to be coming your way live at noon for the latest on storm coverage, what to look out for, and where. Right now, let's get to the outside in. Starting off in Livingston Parish, a woman convicted of raping an unconscious victim at the home of a sheriff's deputy will spend the rest of her life in prison. Melanie Curtin was in court yesterday for sentencing and charges of video voyeurism and aggravated rape. Though Curtin apologized for her actions, she maintained she had no memory of what happened adding she regretted not testifying in her own trial. Curtin and several members of her family tearfully pleaded for mercy from the judge, but was ultimately handed a life sentence. In Ascension Parish, work to clear debris at a Bayou Manchac is almost complete. Branches that were once at the bottom of Bayou Manchac were loaded into trucks and hauled away yesterday. Ron Savoy, Director of Public Works out there, says debris has piled up in the bayou for years, which has caused flooding problems, not just at Ascension, but in EBR and Eberville as well. Savoy says the only thing left is the work on Alligator Bayou Road. He says it's important as the rainy season approaches quickly. Their goal was to be done by hurricane season. Mother Nature will issue them a report card today. We've apparently got a murder-suicide in Eberville Parish. Sheriff's deputies were doing a welfare check at a house on Charles Horry Drive when they found two people shot dead. That scene is northwest of Plaquemine off Highway 1148. Investigators said family members were concerned after not hearing from the husband and wife, who were known to be having marital issues. Closing out in Lake Charles, a drive-by shooting has killed a 6-year-old girl who was watching TV in her house in southwest Louisiana. The shooting was reported late Sunday. Lake Charles Deputy Chief Franklin Fondell Jr. Told news outlets. Crime scene and coroner's office investigators were working at the site when Fondell spoke to reporters. That is the outside in. We are due up for a break. When we come back from that break, we'll update you on the weather and hit up This Day in History next. I got to step away for 1 second, y'all. I feel like having the sponsors over my shoulder. I don't know. When we do coverage at noon today, we'll do the radar, but I don't know. Ooh. To who? Hey, Jeff, watching in from Green Bay. What's happening, brother? Galen says driving around barricades in the floodwaters was prophesied by Darwin and referred to as survival of the fittest. Yep. It's amazing. This is going to sound so heartless. The people who insist that we be taught the theory of the people who insist we be taught Darwinism are the ones who insist on not living it. There's a little chicken soup for the a-hole, right? Wow, that's slightly further south for that red bubble. Yes. So, all right, I want to throw a trivia question out for YouTube. 1 month from today, there will be a celebrity death that is going to take over the show in a certain way. Which celebrity death 1 month from today is going to garner a ton of my attention? God, I hate that phrasing. .806 Talk 107.3 FM WBRP, Hour 3 of Mornings with Brian Haldane coming your way right now. Going to have a busy hour for you this hour as well. My appreciation to Fred Raiford, Director of Transportation for the City Parish, for hopping on board to talk a little bit about the preps for what's coming later today when it comes to the storm. And also thank you to Adam Knapp from the Baton Rouge Area Chamber for talking about Bring It! It's going to be his go-to, right? I mean, end of every phone call. Oh, see, here's where I want to make comparisons to coaches, but I can't because they're both gone now. Every time Ed Ogeron went into an interview, it ended with Go Tigers. Every time Will Wade ended one, it ended with Boot Up. Can't bring those guys up now, though. But bring it. Get ready for it. It's the mantra, baby. Let's go. All right, we're getting you ready for today's storms. Programming note, getting you ready for what's coming later on today. We will be doing live coverage. We will be doing extended coverage starting at noon. Kevin Ford is going to join me in studio. You know Kevin Ford from Louisiana Outdoor Adventures. You also know him because he is our number one go-to when it comes to extreme weather. Every time something's rolling through town, we're calling on Kevin for sure. So me and Kevin are going to man the fort. Why noon, you may ask? Well, it has a lot more to do with who's going to be on the road at what time. A lot of schools in the area closing at noon or within the 11 o'clock hour. A lot of businesses are going to be shutting down after a half a day. City Parish just went ahead and closed. A lot of the state businesses or state offices are looking at a half day. So if everyone's shutting it down at noon, everyone's expected to be on the road at noon. Well, that's also when the rain's expected to really ramp up, and it is going to be nasty. The squall line in front of the storm is going to be the most violent part of the storm, so we'll be coming your way at noon today, and we'll be broadcasting as needed. Of course, Jay Ducote's going to drive you home this afternoon from 4 to 6. I'm sure I will be up here to chime in a little bit throughout that as well. By the way, the coverage at noon today will also be available on our YouTube channel. That YouTube channel, Mornings with Brian Haldane. If you go ahead and subscribe now, you will get an alert when we go live at noon. Just like you get an alert when we go live every morning. One more note before we get to this day in history, and that is you heard meteorologist Marissa Nuzzo's forecast right there. And she let us know that there's a 4 out of 5 moderate alert for today's weather. I would like to expound upon that and say 4 out of 5 moderate alert is a lot worse than it sounds. The word moderate is a terrible word to use right there. She's only going with what the National Weather Service provides her as far as the preferred nomenclature. But if I'm walking at a moderate pace, my heart rate isn't getting up. There's jogging and sprinting after that, right? Moderate is the second worst possibility there is. The only other level of risk is high. When she says 4 out of 5, that's basically the part you should key in on. It's a 4 out of 5. We're almost at the highest risk possible. The word moderate, there's no sense of urgency to that. You hungry? I'm moderately hungry. Okay, then we won't eat yet. There going to be storms today? Moderate risk. Oh, no! Batten down the hatches. Such just poor choosing of words. That's not on Marissa Nuzzo's. That's not her fault, though. That's how the National Weather Service describes it. We'll keep you up to speed as the morning wears on. Right now, though, we dial back the clock. We go back in time. Jake's got this day in history.
Yes, sir. It is time for this day in history. We're kicking things off.
Yesterday I missed the beginning of the hour. I was unavoidably detained for about 30 extra seconds.
You were preoccupied,
and you just shut me out, man. You just killed my. I couldn't even get back in.
I'm sorry.
I'm talking the whole time, and I'm like, Jake, can you even hear me?
The answer was no. I couldn't.
Hello.
I'm sorry.
YouTube could hear me.
YouTube was probably just staring at you, just staring back at them like it was The Office or something.
It's weird. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
It's all right. It was on me. I had something I had to tend to.
It'd be like that.
Yeah.
Well, starting things off in 1765, Stamp Act was passed, the first direct British tax on American colonists, organized by Prime Minister George Grenville. How'd that go?
Not well.
Not in the slightest.
Not well.
1903, Niagara Falls runs out of water because of a drought.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Weird, isn't it?
Yeah. I didn't think that is something that could happen.
Well, it did.
It did. It did in 1903. This is an interesting one here. This is a two-parter here. 1941, James Stewart is inducted into the Army, becoming the first major American movie star to wear a military uniform in World War II.
Cool.
3 years later, in 1944, American movie star Jimmy Stewart flies his 12th combat mission, leading the 2nd Bomb Wing in an attack on Berlin.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
If they haven't already made a series on that, it's coming. It's got to be. 1963, the Beatles released their first album, Please Please Me.
Okay.
And going 50 years into the future, 2013, American rock band My Chemical Romance announced their breakup.
How did that make your cut?
I don't know. I've heard of them, and plenty of people I know listen to My Chemical Romance, or had.
Yeah.
What? They were big in my generation.
Yeah. Which, look, actively recruiting new listeners, for sure. 1994, the NFL announced the addition of the two-point conversion.
Really?
Yeah. It was the first time they had changed scoring at all in 75 years.
You said 94?
94.
94 when they did that?
Yeah.
Wow. Would have thought that would have been a lot, I don't know, maybe an 80.
Yeah.
I guess
97, we almost got hit by the Hale-Bopp comet.
Oof. Almost. Is that all the events you got?
Yeah.
All right, well, let's get right to the birthdays. First up, Reese Witherspoon turns 46. J.J. Watt is 33. Keegan Michael Key.
Whoa. Baton Rouge's own Reese Witherspoon.
Is she really from Baton Rouge?
Raised in Tennessee, born here.
Okay.
Baton Rouge's own
Well,
Reese Witherspoon. Or without her spoon, I don't know.
Yeah, or with a knife.
With her knife.
Or with a fork. William Shatner is also 91.
It's William Shatner's birthday?
Yes, it is.
I got issues with this email because I get an email that gives me 3 celebrities
Did they really
a day.
leave William Shatner off
They
the
gave
list?
me Reese Witherspoon.
Yeah.
They gave me J.J. What?
Yeah.
And they gave me, you done messed up, A.A. Ron.
I mean, all 3 of those were valid. They were my
Right.
top 3.
But Shatner. I feel like Shatner should be above all 3. I don't know who you bump. But
I don't know.
Captain friggin' Kirk, baby.
I mean, all four of them are pretty heavy hitters.
Yeah!
Only one death to talk about.
Whoa. Bob Costas.
Oh, my gosh. It is Bob Costas' birthday.
1952. And former New Orleans Saints running back Chris Ivory.
Hey.
Born in 1988.
Happy birthday to all those mentioned. One death to talk about. Elgin Baylor passed on this day, sadly, just a year ago.
Oh.
Yeah. And finally, holiday. Only one to talk about. It is National Goof Off Day.
Okay.
This day in history.
Not goofing off in the morning though, because we got to buckle down to make sure we're all ready to get out of harm's way before the weather gets here. I saw it's also National Water Day, which is very foreboding.
We love water.
No, depends on where it's coming from.
I mean, yeah.
If it's coming from a squall line, it's moving from Texas this way.
I prefer high quality H2O.
Well, it's weird that it's National Water Day on the anniversary of Niagara running out of it.
Yeah.
Dun, dun, dun.
They weren't feeling festive that day.
We've got to take a break. When we come back from that break, Attorney General Jeff Landry is slated to join us next. Hey now, hey now. It's also not Bruno Mars's song. It's Will Ronson. Is it Mark Ronson? Mark Ronson featuring Bruno Mars. That's what one of the ones they want me using. I'll be switching them up a good bit. They believe that there's a little bit of confusion because there's student apartments right above them.
That is fair.
It's on campus. It's right across the street from Tiger Stadium, and there's campus apartments above them. Yeah. So it would be very easy to think, wow, like, what was the one that was in front of Pentagon dorms? The what? No, it was like a little grocery store, but it was more like a little bodega. Pentagon dorms. There's the building that's in front of them.
Are you going toward Dalrymple or toward the Enchanted Forest?
Where's the Enchanted Forest? The hell is that? I didn't know they called that the Enchanted Forest. That name is relatively new as far as I know. I didn't know it was called that.
Well, the story behind it is back in the 60s and 70s, it was a lot denser forest, so people would go back there and
The drugs or the sex? Yeah.
mostly drugs. No, but are you talking toward Dalrymple or toward...
Dalrymple. On the Dalrymple side.
Is it underneath one of those science buildings?
Maybe I'm thinking in the wrong spot.
Because it is a subway now. I need to know.
818 Talk 107.3 FM WBRP. Mornings with Brian Haldane rolling right along. So, COVID requirements are starting to fall to the wayside. New Orleans actually made it officially official, right after, honestly, right after all the St. Patrick's Day parades. The mandates are over with. But are we done with the battle here? Are we going to see anything's ugly head pop back up again? Joining us now to talk about that and a few other things is Attorney General Jeff Landry. Jeff, good morning. Welcome back, sir. How are you?
Good morning, Brian.
Let's start by talking about immunization requirements. And your office, the headline from the press release reads, "Continuing efforts to protect personal freedom, Attorney General Jeff Landry urges the legislature to repeal the rule LDH used to amend the immunization schedule." This feels like it's something proactive and not something that you're responding to what's already out there.
Well, I mean, look, here's what I'll tell you, Brian. I think you started well. As the question is, are we ever done? And I would quote Ronald Reagan, is that freedom, is required to be fought for consistently, because there are those that will always want to take it away from you. I mean, where we are in the vaccine mandate, if I would remind everyone, is that the Louisiana Department of Health, from instructions of the governor last year, promulgated or drafted a rule to mandate vaccines be instituted on all children in K through 12, starting in September of this year. The legislature went in, they held an oversight hearing, they determined that this rule was unacceptable. The governor just ignored it and said, you know what, I'm going to veto the legislative action. We're going to institute this rule anyhow. We immediately filed suit. We believe that the rule has a number of legal flaws in it. While that's going on, the legislature is now in session. There is a provision that allows the legislature to override that rule, to basically veto out any rule by an agency by concurrent resolution, under which the governor gets no veto. And so what we did was we sent the legislative leadership a letter, and we attached to that letter an amici, a friend of the court, that was signed by almost 5,000 parents around Louisiana. This was an amici that was drafted by the Children's Health Defense and supported by the Bayou Mama Bears. And again, they only opened this amici up for signature for about 5 days, and they got almost 5,000 signatures, and then they filed it. I think that sends a clear signal to everyone out there, including the legislature, that, listen, parents want the choice. Their decisions for their children and how and the choices that they make for their children in regards to health care should be made by parents and not the government.
You said concurrent resolution. Let's talk about that for just a second. Does a concurrent resolution carry with it the weight of law?
What a concurrent resolution does in this particular matter is it voids out the rule. There's a provision under the statutes that allow the legislature to come in by concurrent resolution and just negate a rule. And so that's what we're basically asking the legislature to do. We know that the wheels of justice turn slow. We know that these court cases take a lot of time. Why create the anxiety for parents over the next 3-4 months or throughout the summertime while we litigate this particular case and then probably have to bring it all the way up to the Louisiana Supreme Court before September? Why not just put this to bed right here, right now, while the legislature is in session in Baton Rouge?
Yeah, it sounds weird when I hear concurrent resolution, because that's the same legislation that you'll see presented to, and there's a House concurrent resolution to honor the Boy Scouts of Kentwood, Louisiana as good citizens. It feels like something should be a little bit weightier here.
Well, because there are many different applications for a concurrent resolution. But what happens is there are provisions under Louisiana law that allows the legislature, specifically by concurrent resolution, to void out a rule made by an agency. In fact, by concurrent resolution, the legislature can suspend a law. Mm-hmm. They could suspend any law. That was part of what we had pleaded with the legislature to do when the governor had Louisiana under all of his draconian measures that we know have negatively affected Louisiana citizens out there. And trying to get everyone to concentrate on the things that mattered most to Louisianians, which was like inflation, education, crime, things that really, really are affecting us. And so the legislature can, by concurrent resolution, a simple majority of both the House and the Senate, basically void out this unnecessary vaccine mandate on our children.
Now, does this remain in effect under an emergency declaration? And how do you walk the balance of not swinging the pendulum in the other direction when it comes to the balance of power and limiting the governor's emergency powers?
Well, I mean, look, I think that we've all seen by now that any governor now can abuse their emergency powers. This governor has shown us how you can abuse it. I mean, I don't know, Brian. I've never known an emergency to last 2 years. You know, it's something that flies in the face of what you deem, quote, an emergency. I think that this actually puts back in place the balance of power of where the legislature says, listen, we delegate to the executive and its agencies certain powers. And when they step above or they do things that are outside the scope of what we believe is our job, then we claw it back. And that's what this concurrent resolution would basically do. I mean, I would remind you that the vaccine schedule, that the current one that we set out is set out by the legislature through a specific statute. And the governor and them just short-circuited that. They sidestepped that. They said, well, you know what, we can't get this done through the legislature, so we're going to do it on our own. It's called executive fiat, and it's part of the problems that we have in this country, and it's part of problems that create anxiety amongst the public as to why our government doesn't work. Why? Because when there's a loudmouth minority bunch of people that want things a particular way and want us all to live based upon the way that they want us to live and not be free, then those are the kind of things that they do. This gives the legislature an opportunity to void out the rule. And listen, if we believe that a COVID-19 vaccine mandate is necessary, then let's go put it in place the proper way. Let's have a debate. Let's let Louisiana citizens and duly elected representatives whose task is to legislate, not to execute. That's what the governor does. And then we'll have that debate and see where that gets us.
We've got Attorney General Jeff Landry with us for a couple minutes. I appreciate your time this morning. I want to talk domestic energy in a minute, but from a more like bird's eye view of everything COVID right now, where we're at right now, we're no longer under an emergency declaration, like you said, for the first time in 2 years. We have the opportunity right now for cooler heads to prevail and us to set the table for the next emergency, like kind of a film session, if I can make it about sports, to review everything that was done. How much work is going into being proactive for the next round of emergencies?
I mean, that's a great question, talking about like an after-action review. It's a great question. I couldn't tell you, those are better questions to ask our legislative leadership as to what they should be doing. I mean, unfortunately, we're dealing with a number of lawsuits right now from the special redistricting session that the legislature had. We've been pretty active in trying to push back against President Biden in the way that he's trying to destroy our oil and gas industry and our jobs here in Louisiana. But I do believe a big after-action review is necessary. The problem that you're going to have, Brian, is trying to have an after-action review with a dishonest administration. They believe that they should hold all the power and they should be able to wield that power. And that the things that they did, they made no mistakes.
All right, let's shift gears to energy because I want to make sure we have enough time. We've got about 3.5 minutes left. Attorney General Jeff Landry is our guest. Your office has taken an active role in, making sure Louisiana doesn't fall to the wayside in the wake of everything that's going on in Russia. What is your office doing to put Louisiana oil and gas back on the map where it needs to be?
Well, I mean, we started last year when President Biden was first sworn in, and one of the first things he did was, remember, he canceled the Keystone Pipeline, and then the second thing he did was instituted a nationwide drilling moratorium or ban on federal lease sales, right? So in other words, he did not want any more lease sales for drilling to be conducted. We filed suit right here in Louisiana. We won that particular case. We forced the government to have a lease sale. We filed suit against him on the social cost of carbon. We have taken him on again and again in all of his rulemaking that he's tried to implement on the oil and gas industry and the refining industry to basically make it more difficult for the great men and women out there who provide our energy to us to make their jobs more difficult. And so that's what we do. We do it through the Solicitor General's office. I think you've had Liz Murrow on you show a couple of different times, but that office, their primary job is to push back against the federal government when they've overstepped or stepped outside of their sandbox.
This can be a very slow-moving process. Where are we with it right now?
Oh, Lord, is it a slow-moving process? You're right. We've got a number of injunctions. We've been kind of back and forth in the ping-pong session of the court. But, here's what I would remind everyone. When we started this exercise last year when President Biden was sworn in, the price at the pump was dramatically different than it is today. The price of utility bills, of our electric bills, was dramatically different. Of course, we've been seeing an increase in utility bills since the Obama administration because of, all of the regulatory burdens that they placed on our energy providers. And when I say energy providers, I'm talking about people who provide our electricity as well. I think that it's a little disingenuous of the administration to say they can do nothing when it comes to bringing Americans and Louisianans relief at the pump and at the mailbox in their utility bills. I think that if you go back and you look at the regulatory burden and the things that they have done to basically put obstacles in the way to affordable energy, I think the picture's real clear. And so that's kind of where we are. We're in the litigation phase. Some of the cases are before the Fifth Circuit right now. And then, they'll probably eventually make their way to the U.S. Supreme Court.
Yeah, it's a weird spot when they could say, "Don't blame me when the prices go up, but thank me when the prices go down."
You're getting pretty smart at this.
We notice a few things every now and again. In the meanwhile, we always appreciate your time. He is Attorney General Jeff Landry. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Absolutely. We are coming up on news at the bottom of the hour. Checking news, traffic, local and national news, traffic. Going to skip the weather forecast here because in our next segment, WBRZ's chief meteorologist, Dr. Josh Eachus, is going to hop on the hotline right now, kind of set the table for what we can expect this afternoon. Spoiler alert, it's going to get nasty. Not moderate. That's the word that's being used, but nasty. Quick break, coming back after this on Talk 107.3. Ooh, that was 3 seconds early. Do what?
You said it was like a bodega.
Oh, yeah. LSU softball has been moved to tomorrow. Oh, crap. That was the other story I wanted to talk to him about. You have Eachus' phone number? Not yet. Just texted it to you. That's what, yeah. Yeah.
Hi, is this Dr. Josh Eachus? Wonderful. This is Talk 107.3. How are you doing this morning? Doing well, thanks.
837 Talk 107.3 FM, WBRP, Mornings with Brian Haldane, rolling right along. Excuse me. Sorry about that. Had to clear the throat just a little bit. So, what are we looking at for the rest of the day today? How are things going to stack up? I mean, it's relatively calm out there right now, but if you look to the west of us on the radar, it is going to get nasty in a big, big way. Joining us now to talk about that, WBRZ's Chief Meteorologist, Dr. Josh Eachus. Josh, welcome back, sir. How are you?
Doing okay, Brian. How are you today?
Doing very well. So in Marissa Nuzzo's forecast throughout the morning, she's been saying, and this is the proper terminology, but I don't think it gives the proper level of alert, a 4 out of 5 moderate risk. The National Weather Service lists risks as marginal, slight, enhanced, moderate, or high. Moderate is a lot more dangerous than it sounds, is it not?
It is, yeah. That's something we've been dealing with for years, is communicating these risk categories and terminology. And as you may or may not know, marginal enhanced were only added a couple of years ago, so we kind of had some more levels. And, you know, weather messaging as a whole is just a challenge in terms of properly communicating risk and probability. And, you know, that's where we are with moderate. That's why I kind of like just the numbered system, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, bet right. 4 out of 5, as anybody would be able to tell us towards the top of the range. And they're fairly rare around here. The Baton Rouge Metro, the city of Baton Rouge itself, has only been a moderate risk 4 times since 2011. This is the 5th. So it's not that usual. And I just to add some context to it, you know, it's still severe weather, and they still are on slam dunk. This is you talk about getting into 30 or 40% chances of nasty weather. Now, if there was a 40% chance of rain, we'd probably go on without our day. 40% chance of severe weather, though, is much, much, much higher than any given day where the chance is like 0.001. So it is amplified, but it certainly isn't a guarantee, and we don't expect the entire area to get mowed down by a tornado today. But what we do know is that within our 13 Parish, 3-county area, there are probably going to be a couple of storm reports today, and that should have us all on alert because it could happen to you. Just, not certain that it will happen to you.
Yeah, it's like a hurricane season. It becomes a serious hurricane season when one hits you. This is on a much more micro level. We at the start of the show this morning, CBS was reporting that 17 tornadoes had touched down before the storm even left Texas. Is there a way to track whether or not this is strengthening in intensity? Does it peter out along the way? Does a storm like this maintain where it's at as it goes? What are we looking at?
Sure. No, there is, and it's not really. This is not like a hurricane where it, in and of itself, is its own engine and feature that strengthens and weakens on its own. We kind of look at the ingredients that you kind of always, vaguely talk about on the air without getting too technical. Mm-hmm. And those ingredients change as the storm system advances from one place to the other. And the ingredients are changing by the minute, typically, because they have to do with winds at several different layers in the atmosphere and the amount of moisture that's available at one place or the other versus warmth. And what we are seeing today is that overnight, there has been a slight shift in the most favorable winds in the atmosphere for severe weather just to the north and west of Baton Rouge. Now, there's been a small modification in where that moderate risk has been positioned. That's been expanded a little bit farther to the north and trimmed a little bit south and east of Baton Rouge. But the city is still included, and all locations north of I-12 are included still. And, even if they weren't, we would say, well, we're still in a level 3 out of 5. Some of the ingredients are still there. It's not a let your guard down kind of time. This is really the weather forecasters trying to find a bullseye as to where the most favorable ingredients are. Doesn't mean it can't happen outside of it. If you go to the shooting range, the bow and arrow, or sometimes you're going to hit the bullseye, sometimes you're going to be right around that bullseye, and that's how it'll work out today.
Intensity and duration, what are we looking at?
This is actually going to be, overall, I think, a short-lived worry for our area, which is one good thing. The other good thing is that it's during the day. Our one last week that kind of, fizzled out was overnight. But a lot of the day is going to be dry, and I know that'll get really frustrating for people that had to adjust today because of the school closures and whatnot, and say, look, it's not even raining, and my kids aren't at school. But it does look as though we're going to have some active weather between about noon and 4 or 5 o'clock, which is going to be right in the middle of the afternoon. Would be prime drive time home for commuters from work and also school. And we will have, a line passing through our area. So we look at this 4 or 5 hour window where we should have some pretty intense thunderstorms. Warnings or not, they'll likely have some gusty wind and some heavy rain, decent amount of lightning. And, of course, along that line, north to south from the coast into southwest Mississippi, I would expect a couple of warnings to be needed along that line for the possibility of a brief tornado or some damaging wind gusts. And that's how we are leaning towards the action playing out today with pretty high confidence. I have lower confidence in that maybe we could see a storm cell or two develop ahead of the line, and those would be the ones that would be most suspicious or suspect for maybe becoming tornadic.
Yeah, the tornadic ones out in front of the squall line, it's impossible to predict where they would land. This is as random as the day is long. Yeah. As far as this storm itself, though, when I look at duration to have some level of historical comp, and naturally I'm going to think back to last May. That lasted a lot longer than what this is looking at.
Oh, yeah. That was wasn't even really a squall line. It was just a stalling swath of widespread rain that didn't move. This will be pretty progressive. I'm not going to say we won't have some standing water on the road, just because you get a quick inch or two in an hour around here, and we're going to have some, trouble spots, nuisance spots that hold water. But I can see no world where this is like last May. Last May didn't really involve a progressive upper-level storm and frontal system like this either, and this front should be booking pretty good by the time it gets into our region.
When it comes down to it, how much water would it take to affect things on the rivers and whatnot? And are we even or is it looking like it would be anything close to having river levels rise to flood stage?
Oh no, it just maybe your minor creeks could come up, but the Amite, the Tickfall, the Tangipahoe, they're just way too low because it's been so dry lately. Our ground can handle a ton of runoff. We've even seen, just on a non-weather related standpoint, a lot of the crews around the Parish areas really have been pulling a lot of debris out of the waterways, and that's going to go a long way for us too, I believe. I've noticed the water levels dropping in the channels that they've cleared things out of because water's been able to move along. So I just don't think it's possible for us to reach a level of rainfall today that would cause us any major flooding issues.
That being said, beyond this storm rolling through, it's looking like nothing but dry weather till at least next week as well. From a historical perspective, this is remarkably dry.
It has been. We've been in a drought pattern since the beginning of the year, fortunately with no major impacts because we live in an area where the soils are so moist. But we are running at about a 4 to 5 inch deficit for the year right now. It's one of the reasons we can tolerate so much rain. I assume we're going to work ourselves out of that as we get into the warm season because we get our daily showers and thunderstorms. There's not much that's going to change that. But that's a good thing, priming us for a spring season where we can have some heavy rain events coming in on the drier side will help us out. But if we start, stacking these up one after another, it can be a problem. But like you said, after today can pretty much promise we're going about 5 or 6 days without rain and 7 or 8 days with largely quiet weather.
WBRZ's Dr. Josh Eachus, WBRZ's chief meteorologist. Josh, before I let you go, I know once events like this start, for the duration, y'all are kind of hunkered down a little bit. But have you had a chance to talk to any colleagues from any news stations to the west of us to know what they've already gotten?
Other than our interactions on Twitter, no, they've been very minimal. But what was yesterday's outbreak of tornadoes in eastern Texas is going to be fairly historic. It's a little early in the year for South Texas. Everybody kind of knows the terminology Tornado Alley, which is generally north-central Texas into Oklahoma and Kansas, Nebraska. For South and East Texas, that number of tornadoes, which we believe right now is on the count of about 17, for late March is quite early, and those were substantial tornadoes. They weren't weak. And on top of that, where they were touching down, just by bad luck of the draw, we saw Round Rock just outside of Austin take a hit. It looks as though parts of College Station near the campus of A&M took a hit. Some of the suburbs outside of Dallas took a hit. So they were unfortunately and unluckily striking populated areas yesterday. So once the dust settles around here, and weather kind of quiets down around the country, I think, national weather will start to kind of hone back in on that story. That was a pretty substantial Texas tornado outbreak.
Yeah, we've been seeing CBS News has been in New Orleans this morning. Ginger Z, meteorologist from Good Morning America, is in Brandon, Mississippi right now. It feels like this is an all hands on deck for something that may or may not be.
Yeah, and that's the way these need to be treated. It's a long slog, and I talk about this on the air a lot. I sense it by the end of May and June. Viewers, people on social media tend to get very frustrated with us because we get put in outlook for severe weather almost once a week now for the next 2 or 3 months. And 1 out of 5, 1 out of 6 of these produces. I try to use kind of the kitchen analogy always. We can put all of the ingredients for the gumbo in the kitchen, but that doesn't mean there's going to be somebody there to make the gumbo. And right now the limitation of meteorology is that we can see that the ingredients are out there. They're certainly more expensive today than they will be tomorrow or they were yesterday. But we need all of them to come together at exactly the right time, and we need something there to trigger them to get them going. And we have to communicate that because it's too big of a risk to take for us to try to predict whether these triggers will be available or not when all those ingredients are there. And we say, I don't think it could happen, and somebody gets struck by a tornado. That's far worse. I'd rather deal with seeing the ingredients and nothing happening than ignoring the ingredients and something happening.
100%. He is WBRZ's chief meteorologist, Dr. Josh Eachus. We're going to do some emergency coverage around midday today. Let's hook back up then once we're in it.
That sounds good, Brian. I will be there. We're all hands on deck over the station, so we should have somebody available to chat if you guys want to get in touch.
Greatly appreciated. Thanks, Josh.
Take care.
You too. Coming up on Your Money Now in a little bit over a minute from right now. I appreciate WBRZ's chief meteorologist, Dr. Josh Eachus. The weirdest part about that, though, is, it does need to be all hands on deck. You don't know where tornadoes will land. You don't know where tornadoes will touch down. Like he said, all the ingredients are there, and we're going to get upset if no one's in the kitchen to make the gumbo, and it's setting the tone for the spring, which leads us into hurricane season in June. And then where's our level of intensity? Where's our level of being proactive once we get there? Anyway, we'll have our eyes on it. We're going to go live at noon today. I'm going to step in on Brian Kilmeade for just a minute, I shouldn't say for just a minute. After we have 2 hours of Kilmeade, we're going to step in for the third hour of the show to make sure that everyone who is getting out of work at noon, getting out of school at noon, on the roads at noon, can get to and from where they're going safely as the storm bears down on us, with the hopes that we just walk in here and have absolutely nothing to say. That is the ideal. To walk in here, fire up the mics, Kevin Ford, myself, Chuck P. will be on the board, walk in here, fire it all up on YouTube, on air, and say, we got nothing for you. Go about your lives. Godspeed. We got one segment to go. A little more ground to cover here on Talk 107.3 FM. However, before we hit that last segment, we do need to check in with the folks over at Your Money Now on Talk 107.3. Love it. This is what I want all the time. Troy says Reese was born in New Orleans on this day. I thought she was born in Baton Rouge. I'm going to have to look that up. But you're specific down to the hospital. Born in the same hospital as Peyton Manning was born 2 days later. There's no such thing as an unhealthy level of Reese Witherspoon trivia, Troy. She's an American treasure. Good morning, Brian. Or no, good morning, Stanley. Excuse me. You say good morning, Brian. My wife's job shutting down at 11. Yep. I don't know. Do I want to go back to that?
We've been pretty focused on storm coverage lately.
Yeah, let's do cut one again. Just to have some fun on the way out the door. Yep. ride the wide horse. Cute. Huh. Good Lord. $8.56, Talk 107.3 FM, WBRP. Mornings with Brian Haldane, rolling right along. About to close it out here with one more segment to go. Do want to remind you, noon today, as a lot of people are getting off of work early. Schools are letting out at noon if they didn't close or go virtual all day today. There will be an increased number of people on the road at noon while this storm system is rolling through. You heard from WBRZ's chief meteorologist, Dr. Josh Eachus, in our last segment. This is going to be an afternoon event, and because of that, we do run the risk of having people out there, out and about. That being said, we're gonna run with you. We're going live at noon today. Myself, Kevin Ford, Chuck P on the board, and we're gonna carry emergency storm coverage as needed. So, hate to leave it open ended like that, but at the same time, what you heard from Josh there was, you just can't know down to the specific location where a tornado is going to touch down, or where straight winds knock out power, or a tree clobbers power lines. There's as great as the forecasting is, as great as all the modeling is, as great as all the radars are. It's just there's still stuff that's left up for Mother Nature to decide. So we will be here for you on air and on YouTube. Mornings with Brian Haldane on YouTube. Go ahead and subscribe when you get there. That way you will get an alert before we even go on. In the meanwhile, we didn't do enough about the vice president coming to Louisiana yesterday. Vice President Kamala Harris was in Sunset, Louisiana yesterday, just dropping all kinds of knowledge and insight on us. Just such profound things like this.
Let me say this. This is an issue that Josie actually highlighted in terms of the importance of this. The governor and I, and we were all doing a tour of the library here, and talking about the significance of the passage of time, right? The significance of the passage of time. So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs. And there is such great significance to the passage of time when we think about a day in the life of our children.
That's not taken out of context. That's real life. Now, I'm sure it has to do with something that was said off stage, off mic, off camera, just before it all went down. But, the hell was that? Not to quote Condon down the hall, but what the hell was that? If you went to Sunset, Louisiana yesterday and forgot your decoder ring, I apologize. Hey, before we get out of here, going to remind you about the folks over at Go Slim Nutrition. You know where to find them. They're on Blue Bonnet at Perkins Road. They're online at GEAUXSlimBR.com. You can catch them via phone at 763-9600. I've taken part in the Go Slim program, dropped myself 60 pounds. Do you want to lose a little weight before summertime? You can be on the path right now to legitimately lose 20 pounds the right way, before the first day of summer. It's not that hard, but you're going to need a Jumpstart program. You're going to need to swing by and sign up. I'll be there Friday for my weigh-in. Blue Bonneted at Perkins. It's Go Slim Nutrition. Be on your path to a healthier lifestyle now. Oh, YouTube, I got to skedaddle because I've got things I've got to get knocked out before I'm back on the air at noon. Hopefully we will see you then. Everybody, please, please, please be safe. Later.